Hey everyone, Scott here, better known as Narebo, and today I'm going to reveal to you a major mistake that I made on a recent aircraft livery illustration. This time, it's the Southwest Airlines Canyon Blue Livery, which is going to be painted onto this Boeing 737 template that I created. It's actually the 737-700. There's a link in the description below if you want to get that for free, at least the low resolution version. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. The point is to show you a big mistake that I made, and sometimes it happens. I got all the way to the end of this illustration, and I realized I goofed bad. And I'm currently making that mistake right now as I'm drawing out these swoops here in Adobe Illustrator. I've got my reference photo above. I'm just eyeballing the swoops onto my template or over top of my template. And I think I'm doing the right thing. It's all looking good, and I don't have any issues. It's not all that complicated. The only issue is trying to match the perspective of the photo to my perfectly side-on view template, and I'm getting it as close as I can. But overall, at this point, I'm feeling really happy with it. But I didn't realize that I've made a major mistake. So now that I've switched over to Photoshop, and if you don't follow me and the way that I create aircraft livery illustrations, you'll know that I start in Adobe Illustrator, I draw out my shapes, and then I copy and paste it into Photoshop, and I use those shapes as guides, and then I just I use those as guides to paint my color in Photoshop over top of my templates. It's a little complicated. Everyone has their own way of doing it, but that's how I do it. I don't do my illustrations entirely in Adobe Illustrator, but yeah. So now I'm in Photoshop. I've got my guides all set up, and now I've got my color palette above, which I got from, I believe, directly from Southwest Airlines. And now I'm just going in and I'm adding color on top of those vector guides directly in Photoshop over top of my template. I've got the red going on. I'm going to add the orange, and I still don't realize that I've made a major mistake. Anyway, it wasn't obvious, and even as I'm going back and watching this now, I just want to kick myself for making such a rookie mistake. It was huge, and it made me so angry once I got to the end of this illustration. Actually, not angry. It was just I couldn't believe that I did that. But anyway, so moving right along here, just still adding some color using the shapes that I created in Adobe Illustrator, using those as guides, creating individual layers here in Photoshop. You see the layers palette on the right-hand side. It's very involved. There's hundreds of layers, and on my templates here, every element from the engines to the shadows to the wings to the windows to everything is on its own layer, and then I'm just weaving in the livery within those layers. So it's all organized, and if you get one of my templates, it'll all make sense. It's a fairly complex template, but it's definitely highly editable, and you can do pretty much anything with these. So just starting now to think that I've got this looking good, and I'm adding the multiply blending mode to all of the layers just to let the shadows come through and to get some of that transparency in the color. And it's looking good. It's actually, honestly, kind of a dull livery, if I'm being honest. The Southwest Airlines Canyon Blue livery was never my favorite. Just kind of an odd color palette, if you ask me. Just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say clown-like, but that's kind of like what it was. Anyway, so I'm almost done, and I thought the hardest part was going to be these swoops, cutting from the forward section of the fuselage all the way back up into the vertical stabilizer. I thought that was going to be the difficult part, but no. And sometimes it's the simplest liveries that cause the biggest problems, and I'm just moments away to realizing what that problem is going to be. And actually, I'm not going to drag this out for very much longer. I'll just tell you right away, I should have started with the Southwest titles on the vertical stabilizer first, because the entire livery is based on that one element. Because once you get that element placed, that determines the spacing of the lines that come out of the vertical stabilizer or the pinstripes, I should say, the pinstripes that come out of the vertical stabilizer, down into the fuselage, and all the way to the forward section of the aircraft. Now, the problem is this. If you look at that reference photo above and you look at my illustration, you'll see that I've got way too much space in the blue section of the vertical stabilizer. That font is Southwest Sans. I think I'm just using Helvetica. It's so close anyway. I don't have the exact Southwest Airlines font. Helvetica's close enough, but I'm realizing that I screwed up bad. And I was so angry at this point. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I skipped forward to the winglet and tried to see if I could salvage this illustration in any way, and it was looking okay. I made sure that I started with the Southwest titles first on the winglet, and then I based my pinstripe graphics off of the spacing of that typography coming down off the winglet into the wing. So if you're ever doing the Southwest Airlines Canyon Blue Livery or any livery like this, start with the typography. It's going to make your life so much easier because you can actually fudge the stripes, or the pinstripes, or the graphic elements to a certain extent, and it still looks believable and real and very lifelike, or at least compared to what the actual aircraft looks like. But you cannot tweak text. You cannot tweak typography. It's like drawing somebody's face. It's like if you get it off just a little bit, it looks odd and it's not correct. And you don't want to be tweaking that text to fit the graphics. You need to do it the other way around. You need to fit the graphics to the text, and it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. And I learned that by doing this winglet, starting with the Southwest.com text, and then basing all my graphics off of that. And it was so much easier, and I realized, I should have done the entire livery of this aircraft that way, but I didn't know it. I didn't realize it, and I was just kind of internally fuming at this point because I knew this was a botched livery creation design or a livery illustration, and I was going to have to go back and recreate the entire thing from scratch. Here I am looking at it from a distance, and I realized I screwed up bad. I really screwed up. And it's so frustrating because I was about 45 minutes into this illustration at this point, and I knew I had to do it over. I didn't really know if I was going to do it over, but I couldn't live with myself for not doing it. But anyway, I'm just... it's hard to put into words the frustration I was feeling, and I just continued on doing all the little details for this illustration, trying to get it wrapped up just to see if I could live with my mistake, but I knew I couldn't. And yeah. Anyway, long story short, I did go back and I recreated this entire illustration. You're going to see that at the end of this video, but the moral of the story is if you've got something, or if you've got a livery that is very text dominated, start with the text, the typography, the titles, because that's going to ultimately determine the placement of all the other graphic elements. So yeah, big mistake on my part. I had to do this illustration twice. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And if you want this PSD template, you can go to the link in the description below. You can sign up for the Norebo Discount Club, and you're going to get 50% off your entire first order of aircraft templates, the PSD source files, or maybe if you don't want the PSDs, you can get high-resolution PNG files with transparent backgrounds, or you can get JPEGs. I've even got vector versions of some of these templates too. So anyway, sign up for that discount club. You'll get 50% off. And yeah, it's a great way to get started doing these aircraft templates. And hopefully you're watching these videos and you're learning from my mistakes. And believe me, there are a lot of mistakes to be made. And sometimes it just doesn't go as planned. So hopefully you learned something from this. And if you have any questions, do leave it down in the comment section below. I will try to respond as quickly as I can. And until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.